Okay, we are going to go through how I use OneNote for planning in law school. First off, when you get OneNote, it comes with the Microsoft package that you get from school, as well as any other sort of Microsoft package you might get for Office. I believe you can also download it for free. So this is kind of what it looks like. I am on a Mac. I'm not on a PC. You can do more with it on a PC, but here we are. So the first thing you're going to notice is there's a couple of different sections. The first section here are what is called sections, and then within those sections you can have pages. Those sections and pages go in what are called notebooks, and so my personal preference is to have a notebook for each of the different courses that I've taken, and then I also have this template notebook, which has all of the weeks and things that I use to create the other notebooks. So I will show you what that looks like in just a moment, but the first thing you're going to want to do is go down here to the bottom, either here to add a notebook, or if you go under File, you're able to create a new notebook there. So let's go ahead and do that. Then you get to choose your color. I'll go ahead and choose red, and then you can name it whatever you want. And for this purpose, I will call it Sample Tutorial. And then you can also choose if you have different OneDrives, whether you have a personal one or if you have one with Mitchell Hamlin, you can choose it, whichever one you want to save it in. And then go ahead and hit Create. Once it's created, it's going to be blank here, so it's nice and fresh. So this is the part where I typically will go over here to my sample notebook called Template, or my template notebook called Template, and then I can open that up. And this is basically the structure that I use. I have a tab or a section for course information, which I'll copy and paste the syllabus for the course, the calendar, handy links for the course. Usually there's like websites or research or whatever kind of links you might use on a day-to-day basis. And then also I'll have a section for grades. And then I personally like doing my planning week by week. It just makes a lot more sense for me, particularly in the blended program at Mitchell Hamlin, because everything is kind of week specific. And so starting with week 0, because that is a thing, you do need to have homework. Do need to be checking your Canvas at Mitchell Hamlin's Canvas online the week before classes start, because 7 to 10 days before classes start, you'll start getting assignments from your courses, and it is expected that you do those the week before classes start. Just an FYI there. And then week 1 through 14. Technically the semester is 16 weeks, but there's 2 weeks of exam period, and I don't have a week for those. And then I typically have a final, because as you go through the semester, they'll kind of talk about this might be on the final, that might be on the final. Sometimes it's kind of nice to keep track of that. So that's what I typically do, is a course info tab, and then one for each of the weeks, and then a final. And what you can do is if you create a template, which is what this is, as you can see there's not anything really in here other than my various pages, but it's blank. You can actually just copy these over into your new class notebook. So for example, if we were going to put these into the notebook we just made, you can right click and then go to copy section 2, and then you can choose the notebook that you want it to go into. So for us it's going to be that sample tutorial, and then hit copy. And then what I would typically do is I would just go right down the line and copy all of these over there, which seems like a little bit of work, and it is a little time consuming. I'll just do it for a couple of them, but it ends up being a lot easier in the long run because it keeps things a little bit cleaner, more organized, and a little bit more consistent as well. So let me just finish with week 2 here, and then we'll go on to see what that looks like in our tutorial notebook. Okay, so to get back to the notebook that we're going to actually be using, you just click here on notebooks and it shows you all of the ones that you have. If you wanted to, you can right click on these two. You can share them with people, you can sync them, which just kind of keeps them on the cloud, of course. You can also close them, and that's how you would kind of close out a semester. So for some of these, if I am no longer in that class, I would just close the notebook, and then it's saved somewhere, and you can always open it again. Up here under File, you can open any of the notebooks that you might have. So that's not too big of an issue if you close a notebook. It just keeps it a little cleaner in here. So if we go back to the sample tutorial, you'll see first off there's this new section 1 that came with the notebook when it was created. To change the name of that or to delete it, you just do the right click. You can either rename it or you can delete this section. For our purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. We don't need it, and it's going to ask you that. Okay. So then now we're looking at the course info tab that I had copied over here. And what I did is I made pages. These are the 4 pages that I made within that one. All you do to add a page is click down here, add page, and then whatever you put on this line here is what's going to become the name of the page, if you will. So again, I will just go ahead and get rid of that one since we don't need it. So starting at the top here, the syllabus. It sounds super fancy, but this is literally all I do. If we go to, let's say I'm going to use my contracts course from last semester as an example for the most part. The syllabus is going to be out here in Canvas. This is kind of what it looks like. These are the courses I'm taking this summer, and then this is the course I took last semester. I haven't closed it out yet though, so I could show you this tutorial. If you click on it, it'll show you here all the different sections in Canvas. I literally just went to syllabus and copied and pasted this entire thing in there, and that's basically what syllabus is. Let me actually go to my contracts one so you can see what that looks like. So here's the syllabus. Boom. Next I had a calendar, and these are all of the different assignments and their due dates. And then here's the handy links that I had for the class. These are just some of the research here. We had a study group here, that kind of thing. So those are some of the websites that we use for the course. So that's typically what I would put in that course info tab. The syllabus, calendar, handy links, and then grades. And so that's kind of standard across the board. And then it's kind of just an overall course tab. That's where I would stick anything that has to do with the course itself. And then we get into the weekly assignments. So like I said, week 0 is a thing. What's going to happen is you're going to get assignments. Those assignments might include reading, it might include group work. I sometimes use this section for my study group as well. Office hours, and then any study notes. So if we look at week 0, or actually I'll look at week 1 here under modules. You'll see here's week 1. There's a week 1 overview. Here's the readings. Here's the office hours. These are videos, and then there's a quiz. So if we look at this, what I've done is I basically take everything on this page, this week 1 readings, and I create my page from this. So what I typically would do is this. I would just copy, I would go into weekly assignments, and I would paste. And then what I do is I don't like these dots. I really enjoy checking off boxes myself. So what I do is I do this to do here, and then it creates a little box. And when I'm done with that box, I can click it, and it can be done. You can get fancy in here. You can change these to headers if you want. There's a lot of formatting that you could do if you wanted to. I personally do this. I kind of take care of getting this together for my study group as well. So it's helpful to just kind of be as clear as possible to make sure everybody knows what I'm doing. And then everything kind of stays on this page for weekly assignments. And then I can refer back to this. You can also have this on your phone or iPad. I use my iPad a lot with OneNote for courses. And then that's kind of what you've got. And then there's also what we call deliverables, which are typically things that are going to be submitted. It could be, oops, there we go. For this particular week, it looks like there was possibly, I think it was a quiz. So if we go back here and take a look, down at the bottom it usually tells you work to complete. There's going to be a week 1 quiz. So if we go through and look at Canvas, we have here are our readings, office hours. Typically I'll also put in these different videos that are going to be part of the week's lectures. This again is probably specific to blended program only, but that's okay. And then here's the quiz. So anyway, so if we go back here, we could also put in here week 1 quiz, make that a to-do, and then I would maybe put under here videos, video 1, video 2, looks like there was a Kyle video in there, and then of course you can highlight all of those, oops, and I guess hit important, or you could hit the checkbox. Now the neat thing about this is when you get done with, these are all the things that we're going to do or that are required this week. These are all the different assignments, videos, readings, all of that. You've kind of got a nice list of here's what I have to do and here's kind of a checklist so that I can just kind of check off as I go. It really helps set you up for the week so that you know what's going to be required. A lot of times with the videos, I'll even put in what the time is, like how long each video is, because that gives you an opportunity to just understand the time commitment that you have this week. Some weeks are really light, some weeks are really heavy. This week was pretty light. There was 20 pages of reading, 3 videos, and a couple of questions, and some questions, and then a quiz at the end of it. That's actually a pretty light week. Some weeks there's 60 pages of reading and 10 videos, and it just depends on the course and what the assignments are for that week. But this gives you kind of an overall view of what your week's going to look like in terms of workload. The other thing that's kind of nice about this, like I mentioned, I have a study group, and I help kind of, help with kind of leading that or guiding that. It's very collaborative, so I don't like calling it leading, but one of the things that I do that I think they appreciate is I actually share this page, this weekly assignments page, with them. And what you can do is you can go over here to share, and then it'll allow you to do a couple of different things. You could email it to them, you could copy a link to them. I personally like to do email, and then I send it as an email. And then what ends up happening is when I hit email, this will pop up in my Outlook, and then I can send this to whoever I want, and then they have that list of these are the things that are due this week, and then I typically will attach our agenda for the study group as well. But this kind of gives them an idea, and it kind of keeps me on track. I'm already doing it for myself, so I figured if I can help anybody out, this is a great way to do that. So that is how I kind of use the weekly assignments. Going down the list here to reading, in contracts, I actually had a ring-bound textbook, meaning the paper was loose instead of being in a bound book, and so I was able to scan in a lot of my reading, and I would actually just keep it right here in my OneNote, and I'll show you what that looked like for contracts. So let's go to week 1, for example. Here's week 1 reading. So you can see here's my contracts reading for the week. And then what you can actually do is, and if you'll give me just a second here, you can actually go in to this on your iPad, and using your Apple Pencil, you can write right on it. And how I do that is this. First off, I personally really enjoy having lined paper, so I will add that, and you can see where I've done that there. And then what you can do is, using your Apple Pencil and in your iPad, you can actually just go right on ahead and go to Draw and use the pen feature, and you can write your notes right on here. You can also go ahead and highlight what you want. People have talked about, I'm sure you've heard about book briefing. This is a great way to do that because you can have whatever color highlighter you want on there, and so I do that a lot. I use my notebook or my iPad a lot for this sort of thing. Another way that works out really well is if you have office hours and there's some sort of handout, maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a Word doc, maybe it's a PowerPoint, you can just pop it in here and write your notes right on it. So I'll go to week 2 because week 1 here was blended, so that was a little different, but so here's chapter 4, chapter 5. Here's my study notes, kind of went through, I was able to just kind of jot them down as I went. Here's an example of where we were given a Word doc, I believe it was, and I copied and pasted it in here, and I was able to go over that with during office hours. So, going back to our sample tutorial, the next one, like I said, is group work. And how I typically use the group work tab was doing these problems. So in contracts, we had a study group, and we typically had these problems that we would do together as a study group. And so that's what I would use it for the most part. There might be weeks where you have like a group assignment or something like that. You could use it for that as well. Office hours, I showed you that already, where we had an office hours and I took notes as we had the office hours, especially in the blended program. There's it's usually like 1 hour once a week, and you get a lot of teacher interaction with that, and you can ask your questions and interact with your classmates and that sort of thing, and that's actually really important in the blended program. I feel like that was something that was vital to actually attend. I know people say they didn't or they watched it later. I thought it was really important to actually attend in person. Whether that works with your schedule or not is obviously up to you. And then study notes. This is something where, like you saw, when I was writing notes, or I could type notes, whichever way you want to do it, as I studied. So whether that's reading the material, going through the videos, whatever that might be, whatever that looks like for you. The great thing is you can add as many pages as you want, do whatever you want to do, whatever works for you. Knowing how you learn is probably the most important thing, I think. For me, it's a combination of being able to read material and then also write it down with my own handwriting. For some reason, I swear it writes it on my brain when I do that. I'm sure there's a theory behind that, but I don't know what it is. But it works really well for me, so I want to make sure that I have the ability to actually handwrite notes and things like that. This particular system works really well for that. Like I showed you in contracts here, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of writing my notes out. I used my iPad a lot for that, which made it a lot easier to just kind of like be wherever you need to be. I wasn't always sitting at my laptop, but instead I was able to just kind of sit wherever and do my notes that way. So anyway, that is kind of a brief look at how I use OneNote for law school. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I can certainly walk through anything that you had questions on. For the most part, though, I think that's it. It's pretty handy. I like it a lot. I also use Notion for other things, like outlining. I personally prefer Notion for outlining because I don't have as much functionality in terms of looking stuff or putting stuff in the way that I interact or work with it. So for example, for contracts, here was my outline for contracts. This was kind of just high-level overview of all the different pieces, and then you can, use these nice little toggles and it'll kind of give you more information, that sort of thing. So that's what I used a lot for my outlining. I did not find outlining the way they'll probably teach you in LART or legal methods to be very helpful, but that's just me. So anyway, again, like I said, any thoughts, any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.